Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk. So, Corey, I have a very maybe possibly controversial question. And I guess it's not controversial, but I don't know how to describe it. So I guess I'll just go into it. It's kind of deep thoughts here, okay?
Deep thoughts.
Go with me.
What was the Will Ferrell skit?
Dive in.
Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Something thoughts.
But so I was listening to one of our favorite podcasts, The Armchair Expert, and I realized that we hadn't even talked about them on this podcast, and they're like part of the inspiration for our podcast. So shout out to The Armchair Expert. But I was listening to their podcast with Dax and Monica, and they had Ronan Farrow on there. And it's a great episode. I think you should listen to it.
I don't even know who that is.
He is an investigative journalist. He's the one that broke the whole Harvey Weinstein case like wide open. But they were talking about different things, and the subject came up about the documentary with Michael Jackson. And did you watch that? Finding
Yep.
Okay,
It was traumatizing.
it was very traumatizing.
With a lowercase t.
Yeah, and so Dax has talked about this before, and he is very open with saying that he was molested as a child. So he's very open with that on the show, which I very, very much appreciate, because I don't think that men or boys have that representation very often of coming forward and saying that. And so to have someone that's not afraid, especially as a mom of two boys, I like that there are voices out there, because God forbid anything ever happened to them, that they know it can be a little more, free to talk about, because other people are talking about it. We do our best to protect our children, but I guess, you never know when something can happen. But I'll get to my point here. My question is, so he talks about that he was sexually abused as a child. And they were talking about being able to separate the people from the art, I guess, or the people from the music or whatever it is that they're doing, whether that be, these directors and all these other actors, like for me, like Kevin Spacey. I used to love Kevin Spacey. I thought he was a great actor. And then we find out, that he is, terrible and has done all these terrible things. And so in your opinion, and so for me, I watched Finding Neverland, and I found it very hard to watch. And it doesn't matter. Like, everybody has their own opinion. I know this. Some people believe it's true. Some people believe it's not. In my opinion, it really hurt me. And as a person who is this, is a victim of child, or was a child, was sexually molested as a child, and sexually abused as a child, and had these things happen. For me, it just really was triggering, and I believed what these people were saying. And so now for me, I can't separate it. And so when I hear a Michael Jackson song come on, I automatically have to turn it. And we used to love to listen to Michael Jackson and with the boys, and we would listen and we would dance and do Thriller and all that stuff. And now I can't do it. But on that podcast, Dax talks about how he can still enjoy the music because he is able. And at first you're like, oh, well, maybe that's because that person hasn't gone through that situation. But he is someone who has gone through that situation. But he's able to make that separation. What are your thoughts? Can you make a disconnect that way? I'm just wondering what other people can,
I believe that I can. This is the first time for our listeners. I haven't considered this or anything. I'm on the spot right now. I have not considered making a disconnect, but I believe I can.
Yeah.
It was very disturbing to watch. It was a very long documentary. I was playing a game actually while watching it. And so whenever I play the game now, I get these weird flashbacks of oh my God, Michael Jackson. It's so weird just because watching it in general. When I hear his music, I cringe.
But if you think about it, like there's all these other things. Like I said, there's Kevin Spacey, there's directors, there's
Yeah.
business people.
I liked
And
Kevin
so,
Spacey.
yeah.
Actually, I loved Kevin Spacey. If someone had asked me who's your favorite actor, I'd probably say Kevin Spacey, Will Ferrell, oh my gosh, comedian who killed himself, Robin Williams, like,
yeah.
and so I still like the Spacey before I knew about what happened.
Right.
That
yeah.
I can do, but
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, he's so alien to me. He is a bizarre human being just in general, from my perspective. I mean, all the stuff and the media. And for those guys that happened, I mean, that took a lot to come out publicly and say that. And I think to myself, why would they lie? Oh yeah, they want the money. I mean, really? How far would I guess people would, but gosh, I mean, that's pretty intense. I don't know. For someone to be open about it, and that's awful. And I mean, hey, it made sense to me. I mean, all of the allegations and it was just, it's a strange story. So yeah, and then to talk about Spacey, yeah, I think that's awful. But I don't, and it's going to be different people for different
right. And that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, is it that
Spacey
is it
doesn't
just
bother me?
triggering because if for a certain person, like, is that triggering for me because I had went through something similar to that? Maybe having abuse done by someone that you love or who's supposed to care about you and things like that. When obviously it wasn't a mega star, but still, maybe it's triggering because of that connection.
I don't have that in my history. I have not been abused. Yeah. Being abused, can you disconnect when the abuse is happening? When the abuse is happening after, is there something?
Yeah.
Is there a disconnect? Yeah. That's deep thoughts.
It
Jesus.
is deep thoughts. And in abuse, there's so many different levels of things and weirdness tied into it. And, I have been abused as a child by someone and then later had a relationship with that same someone. And there's so many messed up things that can happen.
Yeah.
But anyways, I just thought that was interesting. And I found it interesting that he is able to make that disconnect when he had gone through something like that himself. And so that just made me wonder I wonder how many, is that more evolved or is that just a different personality
I don't know the
type?
details about Spacey. Yeah. That documentary was detailed.
Yeah. Oh, that you mean Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. Yeah. I don't know that maybe I would feel differently if it was Spacey. Epstein, I mean, that's all over, we know the details about that. And the length of all that, that's gross.
Yeah, and it's just so hard. And you have these, Bill Cosby, all these people
that's sad.
that you love, and then you find out they're doing these horrible things. And does that completely take away the love you had for them? It's so hard. You know what I mean?
Their character, right?
But right. And that's the whole thing is how then do you separate the part that you loved from the realness of the shitty person they are?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so confusing.
It is.
But anyways, I do recommend that you listen to that episode of that podcast. It was really good. And I really appreciate what Ronan Farrow is out there doing and bringing stories like the Harvey Weinstein story and stuff like that to light for people. Anyways, yeah, that was my deep thoughts. Sorry.
And it is deep hot thoughts.
Deep thoughts. But I was just
by Jack Handley.
Yeah.
We should, Travis, can you put in a clip of deep thoughts? Everyone will know. There's seagulls in the background and yes. And the ocean. And then it says deep thoughts in cursive.
Well, this is Deep Thoughts Corner with Lisa and Corey. This has been your daily deep thoughts. All right. More deep thoughts, actually, kind of. But I have been really hyper-focused on my plastic use. So, my kid had this thing at school for, environmental conservation and saving our oceans. And we got to watch this great little documentary and do all this stuff. And I think I might have even talked about this before, but it was a lot. There was a whole section about plastic use, and they would go and they have these scientists and these, studyings on these islands, and they're studying these seabirds that nest inland, but then they are out to sea the rest of the time, and they would bring their food to their babies And a lot of time they're bringing pieces of plastic, and these poor little baby birds, the scientists would hold them and squeeze them, and you could just hear their stomachs just full of
Yep.
plastic.
I've seen those.
So I've been really, really thinking about trying to reduce my plastic. And I was looking online, and, some of these websites are so overwhelming because they give you, like 50 different things. And some of them seem like, this one, it says, oh, make your own bread. Well, that's great, but not everybody's going to go and make their own bread all the time. There's just all these different things. Clean with just baking soda and vinegar. I know a lot of people do that. Bring your own container to the deli. I thought about that today. I was talking to him like, oh, I should do that next time. But he brought to my attention, they may not do that.
Yep.
They may not take your stuff from home. I was like,
Possible.
oh, yeah, that could contaminate their area.
Yep.
But Danny did get a meat slicer for Christmas. I was like, you don't even know it, but you're saving our plastic use because we can buy big pieces of meat and cheese and slice it at home ourselves.
Nice.
I was like, how about that?
Nice.
But anyways, my point is that if we all do like small things, and so for me, I was like, I bought reusable plastic bags. So like for the kids' lunches, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible. Like we're throwing away so many, and even the Ziploc bags, I would try to reuse them, but so many were getting thrown in the trash. So I bought reusable ones. We bought metal straws, just thinking about small things that we can do to change. But I found a woman, and she's my badass woman of this week, and she is out there using pictures. So she's a photographer and using pictures to bring awareness. And her name is Christina Mittermeier. Have you ever heard of her? And this is from nationalgeographic.com, but it says that from ocean shores to some of the most remote indigenous communities in the world, Christina explores humanity's relationship with the planet, as well as the possibilities for a mindful, sustainable future. She is actually trained as a marine biologist, and she's a photographer. She was originally born in Mexico City, but she combines her two passions for environmentalism and taking pictures. And she goes to some of the most remote areas of the world to explore our relationship with our Earth and to draw attention to the beauty and the plight of our planet. So she actually works for National Geographic magazine, and in 2018, she was recognized as one of National Geographic's 2018 Adventurers of the Year. She's also a National Geographic Woman of Impact, and her images are, she says her images are worth 1,000 words, and she is a National Geographic photographer who. She's the one, you might have seen this. She and another photographer released this video of emaciated polar bear rummaging through the trash in Canada, and it went viral. And it was an estimated 2.5 billion people saw this, and it started this great debate about the global warming in the Arctic.
Global warming's not a thing.
Oh, it's fucking real. So she is acknowledged as one of the most influential women in ocean conservation in 2018 by Ocean Geographic. She's also a co-founder of and is a vision lead at a conservation society called Sea Legacy. So she is out there. I mean, her pictures, first of all, are absolutely stunning and amazing. And I also watched, she has a TED Talk that I'll post. I'll probably post it in our Facebook group. Shout out to people. Come join our Facebook group. Find us, Her Turn to Talk podcast. You can ask to join our group. We'll let you in. And I'll post it there, and I'll also post a link on her website. But in her TED Talk, she talks about this idea of enoughness. And I thought it was really cool because she uses these photos where she went to all these different places around the world with indigenous people and like measuring their level of happiness with what they have and how we project, like she talks about this one Hawaiian tribe and talking to a member there. And he was like, I didn't even know I was poor until someone from the mainland came and told me, because I always thought I had enough. Like I have the ocean, I have my friends, I have my family. And so it's just a really cool TED Talk and thinking about like, what do we really need? And that's another way for conservation too. It's like thinking about our material things and what we're buying and what are we buying it for? What's it going to bring us? And do we really need it? And, reusing our, buying used clothes. I know that you do that. I see you all the time. I'm like, where'd you get that Patagonia coat? And you're like, oh, it's used. I bought it on this website. And
Yeah.
so, all of these little things that we can do to make a difference in our world. But on her website, there's actually a little tab and it says enoughness. And it says, the more I travel, the more I realize that happiness has very little to do with material stuff and has a lot to do with the way we choose to live our lives. On a physiological level, happiness is achieved by surrounding ourselves with the people we love, by being present and mindful in our own lives, participating in meaningful activities, whether these are spiritual, physical, and most importantly, by being grateful and finding purpose and by giving back. And I just thought, I was like, oh, that's so nice. And she has these 5 little things here, and it says practice enoughness. It says 1, care enough to be aware. Make an effort to inform yourself about the potential impact your choices have on our oceans and therefore the entire human race, and explore what alternatives might be available. Number 2, know that happiness comes from experiences, not things. And this is one of my big things that I like to talk about. And it says, if you need to purchase something, ask yourself if the need you're trying to fill can be met in another way. Go for a walk, read a book, stand near the ocean, talk to a friend, connect to your culture. And number 3, commit to making one small change in habit. Some examples include not to take the plastic lid with your coffee or to-go cup, not using plastic wrap, choose low package options. Habits can also be changed around the way we purchase clothing and purchasing used clothing and the way we are donating our clothing. And make sure you're giving them, you can ask and find places that are going to give your clothing to poorer communities. I'm going to need to take a water. I'm like, drinking water. I'm like,
roll, girl.
I know. I'm like talking my head off here.
I love it.
Pay attention. Number 4.
Things I want to do. Number 4.
Pay attention to the cost of convenience. We talked about this with Claire, and especially here in America, our obsession and need for convenience. Is that plastic bag, straw, spoon, cup, plate, wrapper, bump in the thermostat really worth it? Is the fleeting moment of convenience will inconvenience the planet for generations? Having enough doesn't include leaving a mess that can be cleaned up. And number 5, wrap it up. Shift away from the belief that bigger, newer, faster, or more is better. Right? Find ways to repurpose, reuse, and fix the things that you have, right?
Yes, reduce and reuse.
Exactly. So anyways, I just found this woman. I do recommend going and listen to her TED Talk. And if anything, if you just want to go to her website and look at her beautiful, beautiful art, her pictures are beautiful and amazing. Yeah. And for me, I do appreciate what she's doing and what she's saying. And that is true. It's true for me because I'm very visual. And when I think back of what kind of got me thinking about the plastic and all of this stuff, those images from the movie, I really can picture these things and draw that up, and those images can draw a feeling, and then that makes me want to do an action, right? So that's my badass woman, Christina Mittermeier.
And I want to throw in something. I challenge our listeners for the next month: reduce and reuse at least one thing every day. And let us know what you're doing on the Facebook group, or send us a message through our website. We want to hear how you're reducing and reusing.
Yeah, share your ideas. I want ideas.
Yeah.
I tried. I was like, how often do you do this? I go to the grocery store and I buy my vegetables and different things. And I've noticed myself, I'm like, I'm ripping off the plastic bag to put my onion in. I'm like, why the hell do I need this plastic bag to put my onion in? I don't. All of my stuff can just go together. It doesn't have to be in each individual bag. Or you can buy reusable bags, or make your own, or use a tote bag, whatever, It's just some things like that I think are just our habit that we don't even think about.
It's a new aspect of mindfulness. It's not just about positive affirmations and self.
Right. Well, and especially we have so many things going on. so many lives lost, so many animals lost for fires, and I mean, just all of these things that are happening in our earth. So it's like, it's time to, let's do something.
So our next guest, she's totally on board with all of this, and someone who is very in touch with the earth, the universe herself. I'm going to introduce her as the master of the universe and the owner of Bubblegum and Duct Tape Marketing, Jacqueline Stone. Hey guys, it's Corey. For the first 10 minutes of the show, you're going to have trouble hearing my mic. We had some difficulties, but then we fixed it. Enjoy! So Jackie, do you mind, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jackie.
Jackie. What's your last name?
She's just Jackie.
I'm just Jackie. Like Cher. No, I'm Jackie Stone, and I own a digital marketing company called Bubblegum and Duct Tape.
That's right. And what's Bubblegum and Duct Tape all about?
Well, I got the name from an Urban Dictionary term. It basically means being like a MacGyver and being able to do quite a lot with very little resources.
I love that.
So my focus is on small businesses who don't have a lot of budget for marketing and teaching them and coaching them and helping them get ahead.
Yeah, we can all use that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very valuable. And I follow you. I try to like every single post that you put because they're very attractive. I love your colors, right?
Thank
Very
you.
engaging, and I do. You're very active on social media, which is why it's drawn me in. I've even talked to Travis and said, "Hey, you want to do the mastermind that's coming up, right?"
Oh yeah.
And so, will you tell our listeners a little about your mastermind, the recordings that you've done on the website? I love that. I mean,
Well, thank
people
you.
they're jumping on that kind of stuff these days because everything's online and it can be easy and accessible. Will you tell us a little about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I actually started out as a jewelry designer, and I lived in New York City for about 15 years, and I moved out here because I was just burnt out and didn't know what to do. And then I fell into marketing by accident. I actually applied to be a metalsmith at this company in Erie, and they looked at my resume and they're like, you can work in the shop, but do you want to help us with marketing? And I was like, all right. And what I have found through my like trajectory is that marketing companies are so freaking expensive. Like their monthly retainers start at like $5,000, $10,000 a month. Like who can afford that when you're starting out? And there's no resources. So I started doing coaching at a really low rate and one-on-one coaching and consulting, and that's been amazing. I still have some of my diehard clients. But now that my business has grown, and I've also realized some people can't even afford that. So now I'm trying to put all these online courses on my website, and it's very intimidating because there's videos of me, and I hate being on film. I hate it. But I figure it's for a worthy cause, and just kind of going through, it's called Digital Marketing 101, and kind of just going through the basics so that people know what to look for. Because most businesses will come and approach me and they'll be like, oh, tell me more about Instagram. And I'm like, okay, let's back up. Because like, Instagram's sexy and interesting and cool, and like everyone wants to know more about it. But really, it's like a tiny piece in the huge wheel of marketing.
So you're a one-woman show.
I am. I do have an art director as well, who does all my cool graphics and my dinosaur.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
I love it. And because I've watched the 101, Marketing 101. It was brilliant, and you're confident. It's not what you seem, you are confident on those. And so you got me, I was like empowered and energized, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is really, really great. And I had my notebook, I was like, taking notes. And there was another one that you did, maybe the same one, but there was like a sheet of the self-care, like taking care of yourself. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Time management.
Well, yeah, I do. I did a tiny one on time management for free, because honestly, that is the thing I run into with most of business owners, is that they have no time. And a lot of times they are a one-woman, one-man show. And I don't think they recognize the time that needs to go into marketing each and every week, consistently. And I just don't want to be a babysitter or keep working with clients where like week after week, month after month, year after year, that we're not getting anywhere, you know? So that's actually a tool that I like force them to do. And I have them tell me what days are you going to work on this, that, the other? And I have them put together kind of a schedule for me. And I'll send them texts often and just be like, how's it going? I saw that you didn't post today. Like, what's going on? You know, stuff like that. So
accountability is important.
I think accountability is key to anything, right? It's like, yeah.
And a question for you on this, and like on Instagram and these social media outlets, in your opinion, is it quantity or is it quality on your content that you're posting, or is it an equal mix?
It's an equal mix.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. It's, you know, the thing is that people don't realize is that Instagram started out as an art form. And so when it wasn't created for people to sell shit on there, it just wasn't. And so if your stuff isn't cool or captivating or can resonate with someone on like a heart level, like people are like, next, they can like see right through it. And then also, it's not necessarily quantity, but it's like if you're posting the same time every day, the algorithm is like so weird and messed up these days. No one knows what's going on. At least people know that you're posting, like, say, at 3:00 each day. Then they can, like, come over and be like, what's Corey doing at a Colorado Cat Companion? Is that your company?
Cat Companion and Pet Companion.
And Pet Companion. Very good. I'm a cat person, obviously. Do you have a business as well, Lisa?
I do.
Yeah?
So I'm Superior Pet Services. So Corey and I both are in the same field of business. I'm just much small. So mine's just me, and I just stay in like my little area, and that's it. And so that's like one thing we've learned. And we've learned like doing these podcasts and like working with other women and seeing other women. It's like learning, like you don't have to be in competition with people. It doesn't matter. And we learned that right away. And I learned it when I opened my business. And there was someone else in my little area that has a pet sitting business too. And I was like, oh no, but we've actually become such great resources for each other. And we like learn like, oh my gosh, we can build each other up. We don't have to compete with each other. You know, it's really been awesome.
Collaboration, not competition.
Exactly.
Absolutely. There's enough for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And then some.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with small and medium businesses. You know, why not come together and we can rely on one another, right? And pass on information about, who you working with in marketing, who you working for accounting, you know? Because there are more people that are providing services to smaller businesses, and that's so helpful. And that's how the word gets spread around.
Absolutely.
You know? So and it's a big deal, and it's really important that there's people and businesses out there like you, because like you said, there's these people that are just starting out, and we need the extra help.
Yeah.
And it's daunting.
It is.
So you know, your clients, they're the people who perhaps just have an idea, right? I mean, right from the beginning, they don't even have to have a business just yet, right? They can say, hey, I have an idea.
Yep. I have had some people come to me with like, they don't even have a business plan. They don't even have a product yet. And a lot of times I'll sit with them and I'll do what I call a marketing breakthrough session, just so I can kind of go through the basics with them and kind of give them a blueprint, like a skeleton of what they'll need to do. But then I kind of send them on their merry way. 'Cause like, I don't want people jumping into marketing or paying me when they in the very beginning, you need money for product development and so many other pieces. Like branding is really important. So if someone doesn't have like a solid logo or a website or any of those parts, I usually will send them to other people, talk about collaboration. Like I'll send them to branding experts or,
That's wonderful. But that's such a great place to start. Because I know so many people that have ideas, but they just don't even know where to start.
True.
You know, and to sit down with a professional, I mean, you can go talk to Jackie.
Well, thanks for all the plugs, guys. I appreciate it.
She's wonderful.
How did you find the self-confidence, you think, to do this? Because you do seem very, I feel like it takes a lot of confidence. And I think to sell yourself and to sell your business and your products and things like that, takes a certain amount of confidence. Is that
I
something
suffer
you've
from
always had?
imposter syndrome all the time. And I talk about that in my blogs, I think what honestly has given me the confidence, I didn't even have my own brand name or a lot of my own shit together until about 6 months ago, because I found it was a necessity. It all had been word of mouth up until that point. And my clients are what keep me going, because I feel so blessed in a way. Like, I am coaching them. I'm giving them the tools they need for digital marketing, but there's also a lot of vulnerability there. And so people are like, they're sharing with me like, oh shit, I don't know how I'm paying all my bills this month. They're sharing with me like, oh, this employee is acting out. They're sharing all like the nitty gritty, like their fears, their biggest concerns, as well as their joys, but they're sharing all that with me. And then, it's not even so much of confidence, and I appreciate that. It's more of like a desire to want to help people, and help them move forward. And because I didn't mean to get into digital marketing. That's honest God truth. And I actually did a mastermind last summer. Oops. And dropping coats on the floor. And I did a mastermind last summer, and because I feel I'm an artist first, like a digital marketer second. And they helped me find my purpose. They helped me realize, like, you actually do know what you're talking about with digital marketing. And like, once it had like a larger meaning to me, then it started clicking together.
Yeah.
Have you ever done the Artist's Way?
I have.
What is that about?
I did that last year too, so there's probably a coincidence there.
Is this?
Yeah.
What is that? I don't even. Someone was talking about it the other day, and
It's amazing. Highly recommend. And there's tons of groups on Meetup you can join. But the Artist's Way was done by a sober woman. Her name's Julia Cameron. And I'm not taking her anonymity because she talks about this in her book. And she applied the 12 steps to art. And you go through 12 weeks usually it's recommended with a group. And a lot of the practices I learned in that course, I still apply today. It's unbelievable. I highly recommend to any creative soul. And
that's awesome.
That's something I did last year too. So that probably has something to do with it, because one of the biggest things she has you do each day is just write for like, free write. Yeah. Like a data dump, because we're our own worst critics. And like, it's about learning how to get out of your own way and kind of treating your creative time and space as something sacred.
I need to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Corey's writing that down.
I'll do another group. Hey, like seriously, I did it.
Facilitate it?
No, my friend did it.
I think I was supposed to be part of that, and I wasn't able to join.
Oh, okay, yeah. One of my friends set it up and invited me, and it was phenomenal. Yeah. Like, and me and the women who went through it were like still super tight.
Oh, that's great.
Because again, I think there's something connecting about showing vulnerabilities and just opening up and talking about all that stuff you don't want to, and yeah.
You are a jeweler by trade.
Yes,
by trade.
Am.
You worked at Tiffany & Co.
I did.
I love Tiffany & Co.
I think all women, all people,
the little turquoise
anyone
box
and everyone, yeah,
with a boat.
Yeah.
So what was that like? How did you end up there? That's in New York.
Yeah, it was. I lived in New York for 15 years, and honestly, it's right place, right time. When I was in jewelry school, I met this amazing woman named Susie Saltzman. She's actually a phenomenal jeweler. You can check her out online. She does custom engagement rings and wedding bands now. She has her own business and was like killing it. But she was at Tiffany's at the time, and they were looking for someone in product development, and I applied, and I couldn't believe it. I got the job.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Do you have any Tiffany jewelry?
I don't have a lot. I don't. I have like a few pieces that are like collector's items, but that have actually been passed down through my family. But at the time, we were very spoiled. We had what they called the employee store. I don't know if I'm like supposed to be saying this on air, but it was basically like every time we brought something to market, we went through like, you don't see behind the scenes. We went through like 10 different iterations before the final piece would come to market. And instead of melting all those pieces down, they actually like let us purchase them in the shop. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, that's
cool.
So those are like really one of a kind.
Yeah, they're real. Yeah. That's when I say collector's items. It's like, so on a lot of my projects, I'd go down there and by like the first iteration.
And what was it, like a warehouse? Is it
No.
an office building? What is
I worked in
Tiffany's?
corporate headquarters in New York, and then they have their flagship store right on, I think it's 5th Avenue and 55th, I want to say. And it's like a 5-story building. It's phenomenal. Their top floor, they have jewelers there who work on like really high-end projects like Schlumberger. I can never say it right. But and then they had a separate facility located in an undisclosed location. That is very top secret. But yeah, we would travel back and forth to the facility.
And when did your love for jewelry start?
It started in 2007, and I know this very distinctly because I went on a New Year's Eve trip to Brazil. And I went to Buzios, which is about, it's called like the Hamptons of Rio. It's like an hour and a half south of Rio, and it's this little fishing village that was made famous in the 1960s by Bridget Bardot, because that's where she used to like hang out. And there is every type of jewelry known to man in that tiny town. I've never seen anything like it. It's like a creative, magical paradise. I think Brazilians in general, I'm being totally prejudiced, are the most creative people I've ever met. Because I actually worked for a large ad agency once upon a time, and the Brazilians would always like kill it. They would like be winning awards left and right. It's just a very joyous, creative culture, in my opinion. But just kind of fell in love with it, and I was just like, I've always had a creative streak. I have very practical parents who were like, you're going to, go work in finance or be a doctor. And so I ended up working in finance out of college. And, over time, you realize that you have to start living your life for yourself and not for your parents. And I decided to follow my creative pursuits. So,
What was it like? Were you close to your parents? Is that why you pursued what they wanted you to do? Or was it, you were trying to please them, or kind of, what was that like?
I think so. I'm actually not close with my parents. I had a pretty rough childhood, but my dad was probably like my guiding light. My mom has problems with addiction, and so my dad, he worked in finance, as did like my cousin and my uncle and like my stepmom and like that whole side of the family. And out of college, I graduated and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I feel like I'm still figuring it out. I feel like I'm still like, I don't want to do with my life. And they're like, well, while you're figuring it out, why don't you make some money? And so I was like, okay. So
Yeah.
I ended up becoming a trader for a while and hated every second of it.
Where did you work? Was that when you were working as a hedge fund trading desk assistant?
I didn't do any trading for any hedge funds, no. I did when I worked at Smith Barney, which is like a brokerage house part of Citigroup.
Yeah.
And then I kind of moved into hedge funds and just became an assistant, aka everyone's whipping boy.
Wow. Yeah.
But I tell you what, it was actually one of the best experiences of my life, because not many people get that experience, I feel like. And it's definitely a man's world. And I was one of like maybe 5 women in that office. And you learn to develop a really tough skin. So it just became like really funny. Like it really created a backbone in me, in like you would just get eaten alive if you didn't stand up for yourself. And so these guys would just say the most ridiculous things. So like, and they would think that you're not even listening. And sometimes I just like turn around and be like, you kiss your mama with that mouth? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I started making a wall of shame. And on my last day, I made the general counsel read it out loud at the lunch of just like the most ridiculous, heinous shit these guys would say on the desk.
God.
So
like directed towards you?
No,
or just
no,
out loud?
Just in general. There's a lot of ego in that world.
Pompous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. How long were you there for?
I worked at various hedge funds for probably like 3.5 years, but actually 3 different funds. Yep. And it was just an interesting world, I'll tell you that.
Was that all in New York?
All in New York. Yeah.
So you lived right in New York City?
I did. I lived right in New York
But
City.
that was
Is
fun.
that where you grew up? Did you grow up
I grew up
there?
in Connecticut for the
Okay.
most part. Yeah, so I kind of always like had this like, oh, I want to live in the city someday.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Yeah.
also Sex and the City came out when I was in
I
college,
love
so it
Sex
was
and
just
the
like,
City.
you know, I was in DC going to college, and like my friends and I were like, we're moving to New York. You know, little did we know it's not as glamorous as it is on TV.
Right. I know I like visiting, but I don't know
Mhm.
if I could ever stay.
Mm-mm.
So that's pretty neat.
Mhm.
So you've had like just a bunch of, I mean, your life has just changed all over it's
Mhm.
evolved, and I mean, what a wild trip from financing to jewelry,
Yeah.
and now marketing, right? I
Yep.
guess my stories I got the same thing too, like
Do tell.
just all over the place. Well, let's see. I went from nursing to
Oh,
web
really?
design to owning a pet sitting business. Yep.
You were a nurse?
No, I worked as a CNA
Oh
for
my God.
a very short time, and then
The
I went to
things you
nursing
learn.
school for 3 years because everybody on my mom's side of the family was in the medical field, and I said, "Oh, I want all that they have." So,
Wow.
but no, that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I figured that out quickly. And the whole
Wow.
time, my mom told me, "You do not want to be a nurse. Don't do it."
Mm.
She just, it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
But I'm glad, everything we end up, our past pushes us to where we are now, like, and thank God.
You saying that brings me to my next question. If you want to elaborate on it, you talk about having a rough childhood, and someone else, myself, is having a rough childhood and coming through things and becoming a successful person. I think is very important and very empowering, not only for yourself but for others to hear. Like, can you elaborate on like what you mean by that, of a rough childhood?
Oh, sure. I mean, and I'll preemptively say that like I've gotten to a place of like profound forgiveness and compassion for my parents, because the cycles of abuse, it's generational. Like, learning more about their stories and what they
100%.
endured as children,
Right.
and how like they honestly like came into parenthood trying to do things differently, but unfortunately they hadn't done the work and things caught up with them. And so, my mom has struggled with alcoholism her entire life, and has dipped in and out of recovery. And I honestly, I pray for her every day. I hope she gets well. And then my dad suffers from pretty severe depression as well as some other mental health disorders. And, I too know that he's doing the best he can. But growing up in that environment as a kid, there wasn't a lot of guidance. Unfortunately, there was a lot of neglect, inadvertently. And so I joke a lot of times that I was raised by wolves, or a lot of times by my friends and by my friends' parents. Like, my friend Lisa's mom pretty much adopted me, like, same with my friend Katya and her family. And, I'm still tight with them today and just cherish them to bits, because my brother wasn't as lucky. I'm an outgoing introvert. He is like an introvert to the 10th degree. And to this day, I think he still suffers. So, yeah, I think what, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So, I think those of us who are on these journeys and are willing to take huge risks, it's usually comes from this I find a lot of times people who've had rough childhoods where it's like kind of like this nothing left to lose kind of attitude, like you don't know where I've been kind of thing. Like, this is fine. Like, oh, I
Right.
might like not be able to pay a bill this month. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm a MacGyver, right? So it's just I am grateful for my childhood in some ways, and because of that, I'm able to take bigger risks. And it's actually funny. I don't know if either of you listen to Abraham Hicks at all.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Abraham Hicks is like this woman and her husband who's now deceased, and they're supposed to be like collective divine intelligence. I don't know. It's really woo-woo. It's really out there, but
love it.
worth taking a peek at it. But she speaks things that are such truth that you wonder sometimes, like, maybe she is like some weird alien being who's come here to give us all some knowledge.
Yep.
And
What is it? Abraham and what does she go by?
Esther.
Esther. That's
Esther.
right.
Esther and Jerry is her husband who passed. So I was listening to one of her podcasts the other day, or like there's more like YouTube videos. And one of the recommendations that they give is the collective they. It's so weird. I can't. Is to take a topic each day and to write 3 to 5 pages of positive aspects around this topic.
3 to 5 pages?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I know. But what's really interesting is I chose my childhood the other day because it has been super rough. And unfortunately, it's coming to rear its ugly head again recently. My mom and brother are in a bit of trouble at the moment. That's where their addiction has taken them. I won't elaborate too much on that. But it's just kind of like it's given me a lot. It's given me the courage to take risks. It's given me it's forced me to get well and to figure out what's important to me and what I want my life to look like.
Are you a fan of Dr. Wayne Dyer?
I've read a little bit. I haven't done a ton.
Just a little bit? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, he's my man.
Is he?
Positive
I don't know anything
affirmations. Oh,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is positive affirmations. Sending things out into the universe, and the universe will give back. I firmly believe in it because I believe that's why I'm here in Colorado, because I was so into Wayne and I wanted to better my life. And I found out about Esther and Abraham and Hicks through Wayne.
Yeah.
As well as Louise Hay. Are you a fan of Louise?
I love Louise Hay. I
She's
actually have her
fantastic.
affirmation cards and I read one each morning.
I have a calendar here somewhere. Yes,
Yeah.
I love. I mean, and there's just something powerful in that. And when you get into it and you listen, I mean, you can get on YouTube, you can listen to Wayne, you can listen to Louise. There's something about it. It's not necessarily like there's a lot of self-healing stuff of healing the within and physical. But there's all this interesting mental, psychological stuff that starts happening, and outside stuff that starts happening, and things that show up in your life. And Hazelton folks. So that's really exciting that you do that kind of stuff because that it works. It helps. Something happens. There's a shift happens. So I just had to ask if you know Wayne and
No,
Louise. And tarot cards. You're a tarot card fanatic.
I'm a tarot card fanatic. But before we jump into that, while we're on the topic of like positive like self-talk people, if you guys don't know who Gala Darling is, you need to like run. She's just amazing.
Gala Darling?
Gala Darling. She is like she loves Abraham Hicks to the point where she has like a special online group called the Vortex. Which,
No shit.
which Abraham Hicks talks about all the time.
I love the vortex.
You're either in the vortex or you're out of the vortex. We're getting a little woo-woo here,
I know
folks.
all about the vortex.
I don't know what's happening. I'm just like watching you guys.
You're in the vortex. Don't worry. You're in the
Vortex.
You're in the
Okay, I'm
vortex.
just going to go with it.
It's so good.
So Gala Darling. And she's all about women.
She's all about women empowerment. If you ever got her on a podcast, you might cry. But because
Well,
like
she has
I'm
a
just
podcast. I'm going to check it out.
I'm so obsessed with her. And she's just like pink bubblegum, tattooed, swearing, F-bomb spirituality. And it's like, yes, like who knew spirituality could live in this flavor? And so I think that that's a lot of fun. Because, I just feel like spirituality is supposed to be like so zen and so like, and she's just kind of more rock and roll spirituality.
Yeah. Some badass spirituality. Maybe I'll do a little spiel on her being a badass woman.
You'll have to research. You'll have to school me on her.
Yeah.
She is a badass woman. She actually talks openly. She had an eating disorder and suffered insane depression to the point where she was just like not functioning, and helped herself get well, and now has made it her life mission to help other women get well.
Cool.
I feel like real quick, this like one thing that stuck out to me about your story with your parents and everything, that it just like that, and I found like this word just keeps coming up for me, and it's like been this central point in my life is compassion. It's like you found this compassion for your family that we're able to help you like work through and maybe not totally forgive, but kind of understand where they're coming from. And I think that that's just so important. And I know that helped me with my family and get over things, is to kind of be able to understand and to, see, instead of being angry at the things that they did, and kind of figure out why they did the way they did, and learning their limits on in their, what they are able to do and provide, but also like how we can do that for ourselves, especially
Mm-hmm.
like as women and business owners, moms, like all these different hats that we can wear.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've been learning that a lot, of not shaming myself for things that I do wrong, or when I yell at my
Mm-hmm.
kid, or I get mad about this, or this happens or that happens. And it's like, oh, wait, I can have compassion for myself. And why did I act like that? Like, let me
Yeah.
figure that out, instead of just being mad that I acted that way. And I just think it's just such a great thing to talk about and to hear like other people, using that compassion to bring positive things into their lives. I just really like that.
Well, thank you. And I think you give me too much credit because I think, if you look at self-compassion, sometimes it can be a selfish pursuit. And at my heart and soul, like I'm a very selfish person. I'm also an addict myself in recovery. So I have a selfish disposition by nature. And for me, it's more about like, if I live in victimhood or if I live in anger, I'm actually hurting myself. It's like I used to drink at other people or other things, and when I let all of that go, and when I try to have compassion and I try to have forgiveness, I find I'm happier. So I mean, like, and I do wish them well, and it's interesting. It shifts things. It's trying to see things from other people's perspectives that you once couldn't see. So I'm grateful for that gift.
Yeah, totally.
And the awareness, right?
Yeah.
And being able, whoever passed that on to you, wherever you learned that. I mean, there's people in the world that will never be able to get that perspective because they're just stuck,
Yeah.
or haven't heard it yet, And
Yeah.
so that's like just what a gift to be able to know, or be able to change that perspective or ask for a change in perspective or even know that there could be a perspective change
Totally.
and not just live in that.
Yeah, well, I was dying. I was like a hardcore alcoholic and drug addict once upon a time. And it was for me either like get help or I probably would be dead at this point. And it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And I remember I would like walk into various meetings and hear people be like, I'm so grateful I'm an alcoholic. And I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that is just the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, why would you want this disease? Like, give me a break. And now I recognize why, because we're lazy. I don't know, like, I know this sounds so negative, but I feel like in our, like if things are going really well in your life, like this is just how it is for me. Like, I'm not forcing myself to grow. I'm not forcing myself to seek or to try to better myself. And I feel like the average Joe who doesn't have an alcohol addiction or a problem, they don't have to like do step work or like look at themselves or have introspection or like try to find compassion for others, not at least not in the same way like someone who is trying to be in recovery and live a sober life is. So
Yeah. I think the laziness part is just a human thing, though, too.
Yeah, no,
that part, right?
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, and it's just so funny. Like, I meet in the real world, like just people who aren't addicts. Like, I find I meet two types of people: those that probably could benefit from a 12-step program. Like, oh yeah, like they might not be an addict, but they could probably benefit from some self-appraisal. And then some people who just walk through this world and like, I don't know if they learned it from their parents or where it comes from, but they're just like naturally compassionate, thoughtful, like self-aware human beings. And I'm just like, where did you even come from?
Yeah. There's layers there, though. There's got to be. I know what you're talking about. I love those. That ideal, I strive to be that ideal person, but I don't know. I just don't have that. I got my own layers, right? And my own default settings. But yeah.
Tell me about your tarot card stuff.
Yes.
I know nothing about them except for like what I see on TV. So in my, I don't know. So tell me.
I am obsessed with tarot. I'm obsessed.
Okay. So what, okay, explain to me how it's supposed to work. Like what is happening?
So tarot cards, it's, they think they've been around since Egyptian times. But they gained popularity in the 1500s in Italy. And they were like, people would painstaking, this is before we had printing presses, would take these cards and painstakingly paint the cards so they became like elitist and they became like in the royal courts, right? And they were actually used as a playing game. They weren't used for divination back in the day. And but then they went back to their roots, where in Egyptian times they would use the cards for or I don't know what they had, scribes, rocks, who knows. They went back to kind of divination and trying to see your fortune or give clarity from the spiritual world about what is going on in your life currently and to give you some guidance. And I love that. Like for me, it's been a huge part of my spirituality. I grew up strict Catholic and again, kind of dysfunctional home. So it was just like very much like we all got dressed up and looked cute and went to church on Sunday and everything was like, pretty bows and cute dresses, but behind closed doors, it was a hot mess. And so I couldn't handle that, juxtaposition. And I kind of ran away from organized religion. But in order to recover and become sober, I had to find some form of spirituality. Like I had to find a higher power, something larger than myself. And so my sponsor encouraged me to explore. And so that's when I found tarot. And I haven't looked back. It's just...
So do you do it to your... But you have to have somebody else do it for you, or you can do it to yourself?
I do both.
It sounds...
Yeah.
Not do it to yourself, but,
Yeah.
Read your own... Yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Do it to yourself, yeah. I like that too.
Whatever, you still got a smile on your face. But explain to me, so they can read they tell a fortune, or are they just, you ask a question, or how's that work?
Essentially when I'm doing a reading for someone, I give them the cards, I have them shuffle. And I say, like, you can just say, like, you want some general answers, or if there's something that you need, something that's pressing that you need information on. And you can either tell me the question or you don't need to. And then there's what they call tarot card spreads. And you pull the cards out that they've shuffled them, they've put their energy on the cards, and you're laying them out in a specific order to be like, here's what's at the heart of the matter, here's the opposing force, here's like the causes and concerns. This is what was going on previously. This is what's going on now. It's just the way they're all laid out, and whatever card flips up into that area kind of can provide insight. And for me, it's absolutely profound. I sometimes I'm thinking of moving into this field, career number 4, I guess. I don't know. And I just love giving readings to people because I truly believe in it. I truly believe there's something spiritual and divine and magical about it all. I can't even tell you how many times I've given readings to people and like had them just be sitting in my chair bawling. Like, and it's even better when it's strangers and people you've never met before in your life. And I mean, the stories I could tell could go on for days. It's really bizarre.
But do you believe that, like, is it the cards, or is it you, or is it a combination of you and the cards? Like, could anybody just deal these cards, like do that and like get an answer?
Yeah.
Or do you have to have like this connection?
Well,
does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I've taken classes at Psychic Horizons, which is amazing, because I only knew I was an empath. I didn't even know what that word meant till I moved to Boulder. I was like, I'm in the heart of woo-woo land, and I wanted to know more about what that meant. And I'm just a deep feeler, and I have a deep intuition. And they believe at Psychic Horizons that every single person on the planet is psychic. And that, especially children, because they're not so shaped and formed by societal pressures. And I love this. I was an anthropology major, so I love like the whole nature versus nurture debate. And the idea is that basically like in our society, it's been beaten out of us that like, that we have our own innate psychic abilities and that we are strongly connected to the other side. So yes, essentially anyone can give a tarot reading and can lay it out and get answers. I think the more you practice, the more you just kind of intuitively can pick up on things. Like I'll lay down the cards sometimes and I'll ask someone, I'm like, did you recently have someone die? And it's just because like or like, did you just go through a breakup, or like, there's just certain cards that have pretty significant meanings, and they usually only come up in readings when certain situations are happening. And it's just crazy because like then people will start bawling. But like, let's say you haven't been doing readings day in, day out, you might not get the same,
Right.
interpretation.
Yeah. What is the other side?
The other side. I don't know. I don't know. And I know that for me, it's really love is all there is, like the good old Beatles song, they're really, it truly at our source. I think all of us are just little balls of unconditional love. And I think the more we move into like this digital age and into our societal norms, we're actually fracturing it and breaking it all apart. It's like a destruction of our own making. And I don't know. I'm constantly on a quest to get back there. So I think tarot is a great way to connect.
Yeah, I love it. I grew up with it because my dad introduced me to it.
Is
So
your dad
that's
a
how
tarot
you and I
reader?
connected. Yeah, dad'll read them, and he believes
Corey's
into
dad
them
does
very much.
everything.
I know he does. He's seen aliens or UFOs, not aliens. Yeah.
Oh my God, your dad and I might need to hang out.
He's really cool.
He's so
I'll introduce you.
interesting.
He's a
He's
very
so
cool guy. But somebody in our family was born with the veil over her face, which was like the placenta.
Oh, yeah.
But back
yeah.
then, that was a sign that they were psychic or something like that. And
Yep.
she read palms, so it's just kind of fun,
I'm just getting into that.
that kind of I know nothing about it, but that kind of spirituality, interesting. What do you call it? Psychic, not necessarily psychic, but kind of just ideas been passed down the family. So my dad introduced me to tarot when I was probably like 10 or something like that, and then I've always had a deck. And it's amazing. You introduced me to this whole world of beautiful decks that I didn't even know existed.
Did I?
Yes, you
I
did.
don't remember this.
Oh my gosh! When
We have
we
so
more.
many things I feel like we need to do. We got to go on table tours and have our cards read.
yes,
Yeah.
We've
Oh,
got
that's
many things that
fun.
we.
I should have brought my deck. I totally would. I love giving
Well,
readings.
now we need to
fun.
have like some kind of girls' night, and we need
Yep.
things need to happen.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
neat. I mean, coincidence? I don't know, but I've been hanging out with cards for a long time, and like you said, there's like this connection, and it is amazing. I have some goddess cards that I've been using, and it's wild. I'm just like, wow, and it's interesting how the same card will keep coming up. I'm like, out of all these cards, the same one keeps coming up. What the heck is up with that? I can't help but believe something's going on.
Yep.
And I like what you were talking about too. And Lisa's question of what is it? Is it the cards? Is it us? Is it the person? Are we, do we have psychic abilities? And I love, and I like that it made me think about, you meant, me asking you about what is the other side. And I never really realized it, but I think as of recent, everything, there is no other side. We're here. Like this is the side. And this whole idea of this energy in the universe and all this business, I look at Lisa, I'm like, how did Lisa end up in my life? Like what a freaking blessing that was, and like, I can't help but believe that
She is a
everybody.
blessing.
She is, and you sitting across from me, and immediately I just had to know you. There was something about you, and it's just so interesting. It's a very universe thing for me. Everybody's different. Everybody's different, but there's something. It's good. It's good. It's good. There's something good, even if it's the Fool and the not the Death card. Right?
Well,
Death.
Well, the Fool and the Death card in tarot actually don't have negative connotations.
Exactly.
That's
it's
what's
still
really
good.
interesting. Yeah.
It's still good,
Yeah.
and like, to die is to be reborn even,
Yeah.
or it's so I was looking up the major arcana the other day because Dad was asking me, what does arcana mean? And I don't know what it means. And it didn't stick
It's
in my head.
basically like archetypes. It's basically some people see the arcana as us moving through time. And usually when I pull a lot of major arcana in a reading, it's usually myself or the person I'm reading for is going through a major life transition. Because it's when you have the major arcana showing up, it's like basically you are transforming. You're mutable. You're in a stage of growth.
And the noun actually says here on Webster's dictionary or whatever is secrets or mysteries. And I like that too. But then the other,
Yeah.
So that's really neat.
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
enthusiasm for it and your passion and possibly a new career. Lisa, were you
Yeah.
going to ask something?
Well, yeah, because you just said something about either you or the person you're reading for
Mm-hmm.
is going through something. So when you're doing a reading,
Mm-hmm.
are the cards like getting this energy from the both of you, or how do you know it's like a card means something for that person and it doesn't mean something for you? Or does that
That's a great question. I actually I'll have the person say their name aloud 3 times, and then I'll actually have them shuffle it, and a lot of times I'll lay it out and I'll have them pick the cards for me and put them in my hand.
so it's not like you're keeping your
Yeah,
energy away as much as
right.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, I mean, like, definitely there's nothing is built in a vacuum, right?
Right.
But
We're all in the vortex.
we're all in the vortex. There you go.
If there's a listener who's interested more about this, can they contact you directly?
Sure. Yeah, I also have an Instagram called The Evolution of Joy. And that is where I talk about tarot all day long.
Well, her turn to talk is going to have to follow that.
This is totally off topic. Can you please tell the story about you in a bus?
Oh, God.
Yeah, let's close with this bus
Yeah.
story.
I gotta know.
I was
Jesus.
actually hit in a crosswalk by a bus in college. I
In
was
New York?
in
You
Washington,
thrown?
D.C. I was thrown. I was thrown,
Jackie.
and I landed on my feet like a cat, and my foot cracked out of my shoe.
I've heard of that crazy people
And
like land on their feet.
I
Their
land on-
shoes just fall off.
I landed on my feet, and I was wearing sandals, and my right foot cracked through my shoe and broke 3 of the center metatarsals.
Oh,
They were like sticking out of the skin.
I don't want to know. I don't even know because
Oh.
I passed out
Oh,
apparently.
gosh.
So.
Oh, well, probably
Yeah.
a blessing that you passed
Yeah.
out.
So
Oh my
I am a bionic woman and I have titanium in my foot. And the thing I want to say, and it's just like, I wonder if I go back to the records, it's something that's been on my mind lately, is the bus driver who hit me, she came out of the bus and she came over and apologized. Like, it was like the sun had hit a weird way and she was making a right. She didn't hit me very hard. And she honestly didn't see me. And she apologized. And like, I bet without a shadow of a doubt that woman lost her job. But it's just like, it kind of is like one of those like key moments in my life where it just kind of restored my faith in humanity,
Right.
you know? And I was in the throes of my alcoholism at that point. It definitely slowed me down, I'll tell you that. But it was also like, I think in a weird way, she was an angel. Because it's just like, you hear such horror stories of people getting in car accidents today. We're such a happy country that I just thought it was pretty profound that she like took the time to walk over.
it is profound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of
is.
trying, she could have been like instantly trying to cover her own
Mm,
butt.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I wonder, maybe I need to look that woman up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, imagine that.
Maybe she'll hear this out there.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Yeah.
Thank God you're alive.
Yeah.
Nothing else happened.
Nothing else happened.
Wow.
But it was definitely one of those big moments in my life where it was, I think, again, higher power, other side, whatever, divine energy was really trying to slow me down.
Yeah.
And it worked for a while. So
That Instagram, the evolution of joy is very beautiful.
thank you.
I'll put for our listeners, if you want to check out Jackie's Instagram, the studying and sharing insight of the magic of tarot, you can go to Evolution of Joy. No spaces. It's all one smush.
Yeah.
And the link will also be on the website.
Well, thank you.
Have you ever had to tell people bad things?
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Like, do you feel
With love and kindness. I mean, there's a positive side to anything dark, and that's another reason I like the tarot deck in general, because it encourages us to lean into our dark side. I think we're so scared of it. Like for example, in Western culture, like death is like so feared. It's like such a catastrophe. It's so awful, instead of recognizing it as a natural part of life, and in the tarot, like the death card, it's actually like nothing to be feared. It's actually, if it comes up, I usually am excited for that person. I'm like, oh, wow, you're going through something huge. You're going through a huge life transition. Like, tell me more, and Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some bad stuff come up, like, especially in relationship readings, like people want to know, like, hey, is this person cheating on me? Or, hey, is this the right person for me? First off, if you have to ask the question,
Yeah.
you know, but, some uncomfortable stuff will come up. And I always tell it with like love and kindness. But often I don't really even need to do that because the cards themselves, when there's if you do a Celtic cross, which is one of the readings, there's an advice card that comes up. And usually that advice card is always something very empowering. I find tarot very much connecting us to the divine, but also reminding us that the divine lives in each and every one of us and that you have the power and you have all the resources at your fingertips to figure it out. So yeah, sure, there might be a breakup in your future, or your cat might die. Mine did this past year, which was awful. But like, there's something to be learned. There's something to be gleaned. There's something magical within any type of grief or any type of crisis. So
I love that.
Me too.
Well, thank you, Jackie, so much for coming on the show.
thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
It was.
Thank you.
And this was really interesting. I enjoyed it very much. And if listeners want to learn more about you, where can they go?
They can go to bubblegumandducttape.com. That's my marketing website. Or like you said, they can follow me at Evolution of Joy on Insta. I haven't really done much with it yet, but I find that is probably where my next step in my journey will lead me.
Awesome. We'll put those links on our website too. So
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you. If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask, if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.